yesterday, today as well, on Exchange for Media as well as Samachar for Media. And we have a whole lot of wonderful panels and discussions lined up for the day that are going to be deliberating on the digital media. And of course, the regional panel yesterday was cut short, so we'll hear from there. Request you all to please be seated.
Please be seated. We have a panel discussion coming up. May I request all of you to please take your seats.
All right, Tokir, would you like to introduce?
Yeah. Panel discussion है भी बड़ा important media planners का है.
Can I please request all of you all to take your seats? Thank you, sir. In the front row.
Ji, please take your seats. Thank you. The panel discussion is on with the man with the golden gun.
APNS representatives, can you please request people to take their seats? It has indeed been an emotionally charged session before. All right, Tokir, I think you should start with the panel.
Basically, the theme of the panel is media planners' perspective aligning with what the client wants.
Thank you.
What do clients want newspapers to do to ensure that their advertising is more effective and relevant? Remodeling ad tariffs to reflect impact on return on investment. How can newspapers ensure that advertisers' message reaches their intended audience and build interactivity? Innovative techniques that newspapers can provide to enrich the brand experience beyond QR codes. Developing credible audience measurement tools and media-rich metrics for the print media. And then getting media planners excited about innovating in print. Ladies and gentlemen, how can print be a media multiple platform in a 360-degree media model?
All right, you know what? I am going to ask you a question now. Did you hear any of what Tokir said at this point in time? Do you know what the panel is all about? You do?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Let's get the panelists on the stage, please.
Absolutely. चलें थोड़ा सा लाइट कर देते हैं ये जो माहौल बन गया है टेंस सा एक शेर है जो कि मैं हमेशा इस्तेमाल करती थी जब भी मैं स्टक हो जाती थी ऑन एयर तो उसका इस शहर में जीने के अंदाज निराले हैं इस शहर में जीने के अंदाज निराले हैं होठों पे लतीफे आवाज में छाले हैं ऑलराइट Requesting our esteemed panelists, as soon as they hear their names being called out, request you to please come up on stage and take their place. Mr. Sam Balsara. Mr. Sam Balsara is the Chairman and Managing Director, Madison World. He has over 30 years experience in marketing and advertising. He started Madison in 1988. He's actively involved in various industries, committees. Welcome, Mr. Balsara. To further the cause of advertising and media in the country. He is currently the chairman of Audit Bureau of Circulation. He's been ranked as the most influential person in media over the last 5 consecutive years and the 4th most influential person in advertising in 2010 by the Brand Equity Ad Agency Reckoner. He's a recipient of the AAAI Lifetime Achievement Award and Kolkata Ad Club's Hall of Fame Award. He's been nominated as the media jury member at International Advertising Festival Cannes in 2005 and is also a speaker at several national and international forums. Our next panelist is Mr. Fawad Hussain, who has been associated with the media industry for more than 1 decade and is considered as a pioneer of media buying houses in Pakistan. He has designed and managed media campaigns of leading multinational and private companies of Pakistan and introduced various concepts of branding and marketing on various TV channels. Mr. Hussain,
please join us.
Welcome. Next we have Mr. Ali Mustansir. He began his professional career with Unilever in '93 and when he was made part of a project team that would launch the world's ice cream business in Pakistan. Ali spent 12 years with Unilever in Pakistan and abroad and was responsible for major assignments including volume turnaround of the Sri Lankan World's business, value creation in the Pakistani oral care business and relaunch of the 50-year-old Lifebuoy brand. Mr. Mustansir, welcome. Also, we have Ms. Ramiza, who I don't see here in the audience. So I think I'll request the moderator to come up on stage.
And Rehan Merchant, please. And Rehan Merchant.
Mr. Rehan Merchant, apologies for that, yes. Mr. Merchant started with Interflow 1997. He introduced a concept of media independent and set up Mediacom in Pakistan to service the media industry. He grew from there, and at this point in time, they have the digital, creative, BTL agencies, and he was also honored with a presidential award last year. And I do not know how to pronounce this. Maybe you can.
Tamghe Imtiaz.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Shivnath Thukral, request you to come on stage and take on the proceedings. Mr. Shivnath Thukral is the Group President, Corporate Branding and Strategic Initiatives, SR. I guess because of the time, we will crunch this particular panel to about 45 minutes, and if we have time, we'll do a Q&A post that. Thank you.
I don't know how lively it can be after the last session, but we'll try. We'll keep it as lively. Good afternoon, everyone, whoever is sitting here, and hopefully we'll have more people trickle in after that very heated session that you guys saw. So before we wanted to come up on stage, I met with all the panelists and said we will try to raise the energy levels because a few sessions before that was a little, as they say, thanda. But then I think the minister's session did quite a bit of benefit for us, so we will now try to match the previous session. Hopefully it won't get that volatile, but we will try. So the pact that I have with my panelists that it'll be a bit of a free-for-all, so what I call provocative, as much as we can get in the media. My name is Shivnath. I come from India, from Mumbai, and of course, like every other Indian on this delegation, would like to thank Pakistan and all the partners here for the hospitality. Come to the point straight, the man with the golden gun, media planner's perspective, aligning with what the client wants. So in this panel, from what I understand, we have a great advertising mind. We have one of the biggest media buying company. We have one of the biggest advertiser in Pakistan. And we have another media buying experienced person, but now into creating new media platforms. I kind of traverse both the fields. I've done media. I was a journalist for 15 years. Now I'm an advertiser because I am a client who spends some dollars, hopefully, in the media. We won't have opening statements. Let me start with some questions. Sam, you come from my city, so let me start by asking you. It says the man with the golden gun. The man with the golden gun also has the right to shoot and the shoot to kill. So right now, when you talk to your print clients, both from the advertising side and actually to the media owners, are you actually telling them, you please wake up or other is going to get shot very soon because that's how the advertising revenue trend is going? Except that in India, we have seen a marginal increase this year. You have to put on the mic.
I think what I would say is you got to understand how advertising works and why it works. Why does an advertiser like you spend money in the first place? I think if newspapers understood this well, then I think all would be well. Advertising is basically an intermediate product. Nobody does advertising because they love advertising. You eat chips because you love chips and you can eat more of it. It doesn't work like that with advertising. Because you do more advertising, if that advertising works, your sales go up, your advertising budgets go up, you put it in advertising, advertising should work again. So I would say the media planner actually doesn't have a golden gun. In fact, very often the gun is at him.
Or it's on their head, actually.
Which is put by advertisers like you, because saying the media plan is not delivering. I think for too long, and I think this came out sharply in the session earlier, where you were talking about largesse being distributed by the government in a certain proportion to certain groups. I think advertising won't work that way. And I think it will be a sad day if advertising and newspapers, to my mind, are to survive on largesse. I think in today's day and age, people spend money where they get return.
Yeah, but governments in both our countries are a little bit of an aberration, so we'll keep the government
All
piece
right.
out. We'll keep the government out because I think I was talking to some of my print friends. That's the same trend in India as well. Almost 40 to 50% of ad revenues comes from the government. But purely based on what you just said, and I believe we have a client-vendor relationship here when we talk about Habib Bank and Mindshare. But let me ask you, Fuad, is it the client who is more demanding, or the newspaper guy who says that I know better, so let me tell you how to innovate?
No, I think it's a proposition that works hand in hand. It's not, clients don't demand out of a particular medium. Clients demand overall goals, objectives that need to be achieved. So to an extent, media planners do have a choice, and they make those choices based on knowledge, numbers, experience.
How many times does the client believe you?
How many times do?
Does the client believe you that you are talking sense?
Well, at one point in time, if he doesn't have anything to counter you with, then he's believed you, even if though he doesn't want to admit it. So that's not the fact. I think the point is that when we look at the print industry of Pakistan, it's at times been a lot of claims, but not very well supported by research and numbers. But that trend is slowly changing now. So once that change drives in properly, then there's a lot of things that you can convince clients with, and you don't have to do it in an argumentative manner.
I hope you realize you're on a print platform and you're actually saying their claims are false.
I won't change my statement to them individually and then say something different.
So you're saying that the reach and the kind of metrics that you talk about in the industry are not reliable right now?
Well, yeah, I think they need to be revisited. I think in this day and age, when we talk about print as a medium competing with other growing media, whether it's TV or radio or digital, so to speak, then you need to have concrete proof in order to convince and sell, rather than otherwise, we've seen with the ministers' debate, it's about shares and allocation of shares. And I agree with Sam completely. That is where the death of the media starts, when you talk about share distribution.
Right, Sam, because we're in a knowledge sharing platform, the whole idea is to learn the best practices from both sides. Do you think, as an example or a case study, Indian media has evolved beyond the reliability factor, and media planners' word is taken sometimes as the man with the golden gun?
See, when it comes to reliability of figures in India, essentially print media plans are done not based on circulation, but based on readership figures that we get from a study called IRS.
Right.
And therefore we don't necessarily rely on claimed circulation of newspapers. We just rely on actual readership figures that we get on computer screens, and there's a software available. So that way it's pretty, non-partisan.
So numbers is not really a contentious matter of conviction as far as the clients are concerned?
Numbers are contentious as far as the publishers are concerned, because I have two daughters and I think they are the most beautiful in the world, and so publishers also feel that their readership is actually at least twice as much as what the readership figures say. And I think that's a common problem everywhere.
So in the James Bond parlance, the girl with James Bond is one of the best.
Yeah,
so that's the bottom line.
That's the James Bond aspect of our business.
Ali Saab, let me ask you. You're one of the biggest advertisers from what I understand in the financial services industry, and that is like a constant churn. You have to keep on hitting the person who's reading the newspaper. At what point do you take over the decision making beyond the media plan? At what time do you tell Fuad, okay, you've spoken, let me take the call now? Or is it always?
Well, no, I wouldn't say always. I mean, I think the media planner and client relationship has really evolved over the years. So we may have started on a slightly shaky note where we thought, okay, you keep throwing words like optimizer or whatever terms they used to be, but I don't know what they mean.
So
But
they
today
they do use cliches then.
well, we've gone through the cliches.
Okay.
We've gone past the cliches, and we now understand that there is certainly a method to the madness. But it's just that the madness has evolved much more than the method, which is where things always become a bit of a problem. With print, I think uh, it's a slightly tricky situation because not only is there the client and agency relationship, which brings sense, but there is also the client publication relationship, which is to keep sanity. And balancing the two is where the client has to come in at some point, and maybe at some point I would have to say to Fuad, I know you think I shouldn't do this, but I have to. But I think it just goes back to validate what Sam said. You know, if ads are going to be placed on the basis of relationships alone, then ultimately it is going to die. And you can see that from the fact that every time we do a usage and attitude study or a tracking study, and we look at contribution to awareness, we've now seen print go to the number 3 slot. Certainly in the financial services industry, we see that outdoor beats print.
So who's number 1 then?
Oh, TV.
Okay, all right.
I mean, earlier Sam asked me if my expenditure on TV was more than print, and I said way more. There's just no comparison.
I guess that's why we are all sitting here right now, trying to figure out how does it match to number 2 at least.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've seen this decline over the last decade or so, and I think really it was up to the print industry to figure out how to arrest this decline.
So I will come to you on that, and let's hold on to that thought. Why isn't print innovating fast enough, or is it from an advertiser point of view, and assuming for a second if the media planner is the intermediary, from a client point of view, the print holds no relevance, and if it does not, what does this industry need to do? We'll come to that, but Rehan, you promised me that you'll say something controversial on this subject of man with the golden gun. At this point, let me quote something from a speaker who was supposed to be a part of this panel who could not because he's not well, Numan Nabi, who said this is all about who has bigger balls, and we are talking about eyeballs. So I took copyright permission from him. Is it about we are not playing hardball right now in the market? The print guys are actually slacking, you think?
Yeah, the problem with the print guys is, look, what happens at the end of the day is any advertiser who is spending money wants to know who is watching this campaign. Now, are there any numbers to support the claims of what print media does in a country like Pakistan? I mean, for example, if I were to ask you guys when was the first time you saw a readership survey continuously done periodically, was you guys started in 1994-95 from what I remember?
No, the first readership study was done in the 80s, but at that time it was not continuous. You know, it was once every 4 years or
So
something.
this was in 1994 from what I remember, is when you started doing this every 2 years and then shortened the time period.
Now every quarter.
Now you're doing it every quarter. Now, if you ask the All Pakistan Newspaper Society if they had actually done a pitch to call in a research agency and do a readership survey, chances are the answer is no.
No, you
So
mean there is no readership study here?
Okay, let me see if I can spot a APNS person who can tell me this. Sarmad bhai
Yes,
is
the
here?
problem is, Sarma Sahab, can we get you on the stage, please?
I don't think Sarmad Sahab is here. Anybody from APNS here? I would actually like
I
to.
thought, I mean, we
Fakir
need
Sahab, is
somebody
there-
to actually, give a response on this. Because I can say this from my experience. I've been asked a couple of times to go and present at APNS, and the last time I went there, I said, listen, next time if you ask me to speak on the same topic, I won't even change my presentation. So it's gone that far. The point is, if print cannot support itself to make their way into a plan, into an advertising campaign plan, and the advertiser is looking at a return on investment, where you can give them a return on investment through television, then what has happened is that because of this, the newspapers have moved from being a major portion of a media spend to going into 10% where we are saying, okay, let us use this 10% to try if this thing works in print. Okay, so from being a major player, newspapers have managed to get themselves drawn into this minority share of some campaigns. Okay, and that I think is, I mean, while there is you talk about a golden gun, the gun is pointed at our heads. We don't deliver on a campaign, we lose the advertiser. And if we have to deliver and print is not going to deliver that, and this is one perspective to this, where the claims cannot be justified. I'm sorry, but I'm going to dilate a little more on the other side. The next thing is, we are now talking about getting attention of the audiences. So if they're picking up the newspaper or they're watching TV, it's not anymore about just showing them an ad, it's about holding their attention. Now, to hold attention in the print media, you will need to try and do different things. The problem with print media is that it is the oldest medium that has been used by advertisers. So for them, the policies of how to tackle advertising have been almost carved in stone for the last 20 years. So every time you say, here is something different I want to do, they'll say, hold on, let me go back to the management and the editorial and give you a response.
You mean to say they're not innovating fast enough?
Well, they're not. Okay, so those are the two perspectives with which we tackle or we end up tackling print.
All right, Sam, we have a different problem here. It seems that the relationship is breaking down between the so-called media planners and, to what I understand from Ali Saab, in terms of the client as well. This is like needs for some serious reinvention. Let's look at solutions. I mean, do you think it's not just about like one-off innovation like we have in India with a fragrant ad in the papers? We saw Ravi Dhariwal give a good presentation yesterday about how you have to treat the media property as a brand in itself and then see how I can, magnify the brand power. But in this situation, where do you see this going now? Because if this whole largest argument is one, and then the fact that they do not even feature in the top 10% or the bottom 10% of the ad pie, how will they kind of bridge the gap?
Yeah, from the little bit that I've picked up in my conversations this morning, yes, it does seem to me that that the Pakistan newspaper industry could learn a trick or two from the Indian newspaper industry, because in India too, say right from the 70s to the early 90s, there was a rapid slide in print share from about 90% to about 40%. But in the last 5 to 6 years, or maybe you could say, yes, around that time, the print guys have fought for their share of the pie and have done an admirable job. So today, you know, television which grew from 0 to 40% and print which lost from 90 to 40 is now kind of stable at 40 to 45. So I think print did quite a few things. They have done quite a few things in India in the last 5 to 10 years,
right,
which I think Pakistan industry could learn from. Maybe perhaps if I may suggest, this may not be the right forum for me to enumerate all those things, but maybe a small delegation from this could come to our INS, could come to Bombay or Delhi.
Right.
I think it's a good idea. Sarmad is here, and if he could join us on the stage, Rehan wanted to,
yeah, because
with the
we'd like
permission of
somebody
the
to defend
moderator.
the print side also, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's...
But
already
maybe,
getting-
uh,
Actually, I'll
maybe
get there. That's not a
Anurag-
problem. I'll get there.
Maybe that's another idea for Anurag now to return the favor and we can
चलो
host.
आप इधर बैठे मैं जाके उधर से नहीं आप बैठे ना
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll do this. I'll borrow your mic. We'll try to share the mic.
Yeah.
Ha, sir, what were you saying?
Okay, so let me summarize the question.
Out for
No, that's
a few
okay.
minutes when
Let me tell you
out for a cigarette. So.
let me tell you the question. Rehan had an interesting one. So obviously we don't want to get into print bashing, but I think the pressure point is being felt by them saying that print does not really feature in any of their. It's in the bottom 10, And one of the reason is the lack of reliable metrics. And the Indian example being every quarter now we have a readership survey, you said. And Rehan is asking, can APNS just, at least verify any kind of reliable metrics that you guys are following right now?
Okay, let me just say here that to an extent I agree with Rehan. There is no readership survey on a quarterly basis or a 6-monthly basis or an annual basis. Research organizations do come out with readership surveys once in 2 years or once in a year. Rehan's company has just come out with a national readership survey about a month ago, and that is after 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, Rehan. I would tend to agree with Rehan that this should be done on a more regular basis. It should be done on a 6-monthly basis or even a quarterly basis. And I think a lot of media organizations, a lot of newspaper organizations would like to extend their support to such an initiative, and APNS as an organization would also support such an initiative, because we believe that we as an industry are not getting our due share of the pie. And I think the National Leadership Survey will put the entire pie into a perspective, and the lopsided share that television is getting would probably be corrected if a proper survey is done. The other issue that I think another issue that I see is the issue of a rating system for newspapers. You see, the media agencies and the clients keep on saying that that the newspaper industry does not have an equivalent to a rating system that they have on television and they can depend on. Yes, that is something that we need to work on. I haven't seen a rating system on print anywhere in the world, but I think that is something that we need to work on and try to develop some sort of system which could help us.
The equivalent is actually a regular readership
survey
study.
Study.
I may just say that, in our opinion, generally any media study or any money that is spent in media research works only if the output of that study becomes a currency. And for it to become a currency, it has to be regular, and ideally it should be done by an industry body that is maybe specially formed with participation from the media owner, the advertisers body and the agency body. So then all three parties are actually committed to the system and committed to using it.
I totally agree with you, and would like to add just one thing, one point here. The last 6 months primetime average rating of the topmost rating for a major channel was 1.2 primetime July to December average. Now there are something like 55 million TV viewers. A 1.2 rating would mean something around 600,000 viewers who have been watching prime time for that particular particular channel. I print almost close to 1 million copies a day, 800,000 copies a day, and that is only the copies. Even if I am delivering one reader a copy, which I am not, even if I am delivering one reader a copy, that 800,000 is 20% or 25% higher than the best rating a TV channel has been getting on prime time between July and December. So that is the issue. We love ratings. We see this program is delivering 1.2 rating, that channel is delivering a rating of 1.1, but we do not put ratings into a proper perspective.
So let me ask
What is 1.2? What is 1? 500,000?
let me ask the client
The
first.
newspaper sitting, even a small newspaper sitting here would be delivering that kind of leadership.
Ek minute, client, let me, give me a second. I'll come to the question later. So let me ask the client, because the client here also said, when I say client, advertiser also said that he does not believe in print solutions. Why don't I ask Ali Sahab? Ali Sahab, why don't you respond to that? Because media planner, again, as I said, they will take the brunt anyways.
I'll tell you why he doesn't believe in print solutions.
Nee, wo
Because
abhi-
he comes from an FMCG background. He has brought an FMCG perspective.
Let him defend himself.
Well, that would mean I've been completely useless to the bank then. I certainly hope my last 7 years weren't such a waste for HBL. Well, you see, I mean, it's interesting when you say a certain channel has a 1.2 rating average somewhere. Now, I don't think you're looking at the entire gambit of TV. You pick up one newspaper, say yours, and you say you have a certain circulation number. We go by belief. Sarmat Saab keh rahe to theek keh rahe. We can't do that with every newspaper. We have no idea who sells what. Circulation numbers also get expanded by a lot of complementary papers. Papers sent to places where you don't even know if they're going to be read or not. At least on TV, when you talk whether it's a 1.2 or a 9 or a 12 or anything, there is a method to it. There is a certain level of reliability to it. And granted, it's been what, the last 4 to 5 years where we've achieved a higher degree of accuracy in TV media. But in print, we don't even have a starting point.
Okay. So I think I'll try, as much as I'm trying to get you guys into a crossfire, which I will in a second, but Fuad, can you just supplement that point? Is believability only dependent on metrics, or is it also the media planner as well as the customer who is not being able to see the larger picture, the perspective that is being talked about here?
No, I think I'll just start with a basic disagreement with Sarmat Saab on the numbers.
You can be louder, so.
There are 22 million households in Pakistan, and we house 180 million people. There are roughly 16.5 million TV households. So I'm not too sure how that constitutes 55 million TV viewers. So it's way above that, because TV penetration has now gone to about 78, 79% with the last baseline survey. I don't think then it becomes a measure of metrics between a 1.2 rating or 1 million circulation. I think the first question to the circulation will be that do we have an independent audit bureau in this country that verifies that circulation? One. How many newspapers over the last decade and a half would be willing to put an independent bureau, because there are other revenue cuts that come by way of that? One. And it's not just the private advertising sector. I think the life and bloodline of newsprint advertising today comes from the government. So I think I can understand perfectly that it would be detrimental to them to put an independent audit bureau, because it's their revenue from their biggest supply source that will cut down. Advertiser is still a very small pie. I think the need needs to go beyond that, and I just draw to yesterday's presentation from Ravi and then a subsequent panel sitting. I think editorial and marketing, the Pakistan news industry has to realize must work hand in hand today. You cannot sell. That time is over. That time has been over for the last decade, to my mind, and I think I'm glad that they've started waking up, because they're still yawning about it right now.
So there's a yawning session?
They're not running to make the coffee, and they're not running in time, because even what Rehan said, I know last year I've sat with the 3 biggest publications of this country, Sarmat Saab included, Masood Hamid sitting up front, and there's one publication that's not over here. And we've talked about trying to get advertisers, APNS, to do a news readership survey in Pakistan. I think it's not about doing it one quarter, half yearly. I think it's about doing it once in 2 years or
I think you made your point, and the whole idea is not to have Sarmat Saab in the line of fire, but let me just pose this question as a, what is, for us to, and we Indians cannot come here and do any solution, we can only do the knowledge sharing. Sam said you guys can send a delegation, but my only question is, as a questioner, is if you have to find a solution, why don't you look at what is the reluctance to innovate? Because Rehan also said the lack of innovation is largely related to a lot of reluctance as well.
Let me just say that from the standpoint of APNS, I don't think there is any reluctance. Right now at the helm of APNS, you have people who believe in research, people who believe in actually doing something to improve the investments and accountability and investments in the print media. Fawad is perfectly right when he says that the ABC system is flawed. It's not credible at all. ABC is part in Pakistan. Unfortunately, the ABC is a government department. It's the part of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So the certificates that they issue lack credibility and they lack any authenticity. A newspaper which may be printing 20,000 copies or 15,000 copies may actually have an ABC for 120,000 copies.
Wow.
We understand that. We understand that because the ABC system has been linked to the government advertising rates. Since for the last 12 years there was a freeze in government advertising rates. The government advertising rates were not being increased. So a lot of newspapers found it easier to go to the ABC and get their rates revised rather than getting a rate increase otherwise, because if their ABC increased, their government rate obviously increased. So, but now the government rates have been enhanced by 40%, and we have a commitment from the government that they'll be doing so every of the point of view that Audit Bureau of Circulation should not be part of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. We stand for an independent Audit Bureau of Circulation which should consist of representatives of the APNS being the publishers body, the Advertising Association of Pakistan being the advertising agencies body, the Pakistan Advertisers Society being the body of the advertisers, and representatives of the government because of the information department or the Ministry of Information, because government itself is a big stakeholder in the process and a very major advertiser for print.
So if that's media buying houses, we figure nowhere in any case.
I would suggest for that you take the membership of Advertising Association, as they have been asking you to do so for quite a long time. And having said that, I think there is this. I have seen some sort of a mindset change in the Information Ministry with Mr. Kara coming in as the Information Minister, and we have just formed a 4-member committee to review the ABC system as a first step. So maybe if the ABC system is reviewed, we might and then eventually go to an independent ABC Audit Bureau of Circulation. Secondly, I think there may be a bit of reluctance in some publishers' minds, because perhaps perhaps they're scared of research. They perhaps do not understand the importance of research. It is for us, the society, to educate them and explain to them the importance of what a readership survey can do for them, because without a readership survey, print will be losing the war to television. We cannot afford to lose the war to television, and we do not intend to lose the war to television.
That sounds more like a just add, Salmat, it's not just about the broad numbers. It's also a certain level of insight that we require.
Yeah.
With TV, we know why a certain kind of person is watching a certain kind of show. Just makes a little more sense for us to also alter, our commercials with some sort of content. With newspapers, we have no idea. Digital, it's a lot easier. Yeah. We know how a person moves from one side to the other.
Can I go on?
Let me bring in Rehan first. That's a very valid point, actually. The relevance of content, irrespective of the medium that you're in. Why don't you make a point and then we'll have Sarmat?
Because I want to move to
Sure,
the other side. Look, in support of the newspaper industry in Pakistan, I think their biggest advertiser for the longest time has been the government. And the government has never spent money because they got some research done and found out that this is a newspaper where we should be printing our ads to get this kind of a response. It has by and large been used like you said earlier, as a way to gather support for whatever policies the government is putting in place. So honestly, at one end, I don't blame the newspapers also. The point is, at some moment in time, to survive, they will have to start moving. And now my question to Sam. Sam, you've been in India for a very, very long time. And you also put the Audit Bureau of Circulation data aside and still went for an independent readership survey. Okay. What Sarmad is talking about right now is sort of creating a new Audit Bureau of Circulation which has members from all stakeholders, including the advertisers. In your experience, do you think it will work?
Well, as I see it, I think you need to do both. You need to do both because don't forget, readership figures sometimes, or not sometimes, all the time, do not do justice to these smaller newspapers or magazines which are widely distributed but which don't have depth. So we have this problem in India where publishers dispute ABC figures and dispute readership figures. But I think in today's day and age, advertisers are extremely reluctant. If they are not today, I can assure you they're going to become like that tomorrow in Pakistan too, where they are not going to be ready to sign big checks on media where they are not assured of what they are buying. So it's no longer going to be a luxury, it's going to be an absolute necessity. As I see it, frankly, I am a little shocked to hear about my banker friend. This situation doesn't exist in India. Yeah, FMCG advertisers may spend, even today I think they spend about 70 to 80% of their budget in television. Others like what we call BFSI, banking, finance, and financial institutions, automobiles, still quite a bit of them, they would divide their budget 60-40. 60 in favor of print and 40 in favor of others, and the more aggressive and larger of them would spend that 40 in TV.
Yeah,
so the fact that a large leading bank is spending 80% on television does tell me that the print industry has got to get its act right in attracting the print advertising.
Sam, let me just bring in a point, and I think on that note we'll also throw it open to questions, is the relevance that Ali Saab said is kind of critical, because I think in India's case, at least from what we see, and what Fuad said is right, the relevance to context of any advertiser, I mean, when I'm creating content, is it getting the play in the mind of the reader, is something very critical. So if you remember the Volkswagen ad that Times of India did, or the fragrant ad that they did, at least they tried to tickle my senses, and I had a connect, I would talk about it. I may still not go and buy it, but the fact of the matter is, do you think time has come even for the customer to reinvent and put pressure? And maybe it will work that way. I mean, I'm sure Volkswagen also came up with some demands which then both the media planner and the media house responded to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things, one of the ways in which print has fought back in India is to be completely open to innovation. See, there was this old belief in India, and I'm sure it is there in Pakistan, that press is holier than thou. Print is commercial, it is, it is entertainment, it is this. Print has a very holy larger objective, and advertising is incidental, a very small portion of it. So I think subsequently when they began to get hit, print in India began to realize that print also, just like how television fights for the advertising rupee, print will also have to fight for the advertising rupee, and not assume that because they are promoters of this lofty newspaper, it is their birthright to get advertising.
Yeah.
They'll have to go out and fight for that advertising. Once you take that approach, then everything else, ABC, readership, innovation, salesmanship, category-wise rates, category-wise teams, all of it will then emerge.
Let me just, Fuad, to you, do you think the print as a medium has a limitation of towards innovation, the way you see it today? Let's say Walisa were to go to you and say, you know, I want a print solution. Force me to think print. Do you think the print as a medium is not offering enough because digital has taken over?
Well, okay, I won't say there's no innovation in print because digital has taken over here, because Pakistan digital numbers are still very small. Accessibility to digital is not as wide as it's claimed. I think the innovation comes more from an open creative mindset rather than editorial rules that come in the way, right? And I completely agreed with Ravi yesterday saying you allow innovation, you charge more, but you don't have to hurt the editorial side of things. And I think those are the kind of mindsets that we need to overcome as barriers. I remember Masood Ahmed saying yesterday that, oh, you know, Dawn has a 50-year policy. Well, you know, that 50-year policy has to change because it's a 26 to a 30-year-old guy today sitting as a media planner. The same thing on the advertising client side. The exposure is so vast. The comparisons are so minuscule when you talk about Pakistani newspapers. So it's the print mindset that has to change and perhaps take in joint sittings of innovative thinking forums and come up with some best practices. And then again, there's a South Asia forum to get this information from.
Get the knowledge sharing going. All right. I think I'm assuming you want to defend the print side of things, given that all the three countries have been going after you guys. Sad.
Sorry, my name is Ali Hassan. I'm from Dawn, and I wanted to respond earlier, but I was just waiting because I'm pretty low in the hierarchy of APNS. I was waiting for some senior people to come on board so that I could respond. All right. I think the basic question here is that of audience measurement. And if you were to draw a continuum of audience measurement, digital would come on one extreme where you have exactly the profile of the user and the numbers, of course, the demographics, the psychographics. Television comes somewhere in between, and this is universal. On the other side of the continuum is print. Now, I would like to say that the position we find ourselves in today is not just solely the making or the responsibility of the people working in print. It has got to do with the mindset of the people on the advertising side and also working in advertising agencies. Okay, let me first admit where we are failing. I think part of the problem lies in the fact that unlike digital media and unlike television, where there are no switching costs involved, print, at least in Pakistan, has a brand loyalty. So you would not find an editor of a newspaper worrying on a weekly or a daily basis as to what his ratings are, because there is a switching cost. There is no switching cost for switching your television channel from one to other or moving from one website to another website. So for a fact that our ratings do not suffer from spiral jumps as in case of television or in case of digital. So that may be the reason why there is some reluctance on the part of the newspapers to go for a survey, but that I'm not defending it. I'm just giving you the reason for it. The other problem is the paradigm from which print is being viewed these days by the media buying houses and the advertising agencies and the advertisers. And they are actually, I mean, okay, if you look at the Pakistan media scene, about a decade ago, 51% of the print of the ad spent went to print, or more than 51%. Today it's about 30% or 32%. The point I'm trying to make is the population of Pakistan in the last decade has not increased as much as the spend on television has. The reason is that there has been fragmentation of the media as far as television scene is concerned. So it's not the efficacy of the television media which has resulted in the increase in the spend on television. It's rather the fragmentation. I mean, previously you had only...
May I request, I think you made your point. May I just ask a flip question to you?
Yeah.
Then why aren't you making money?
Why aren't we making money?
No, in the sense, why are you worried? Why are they all worried that print does not feature?
Well, this is what I'm trying to answer, because when you talk to a young media planner, this is the problem of paradigm. The background they're coming from, they're viewing everything from the mindset of television and digital. You have to realize print is a different medium.
But that's the reality,
it just goes to show at the end of the day that print industry, 50% of our 180 million people are between 0 and 30 years of age, and 35% come from 16 to 30 years of age. That's a huge chunk of young adult readers. And in the last 50 years, and I wasn't even born then, so I'll take it to the last 15 years, what has the print community done so that I could take the newspaper on my dining table today since my grandfather left it? And there's nothing to get that young reader up there. So you're trying to fight a mindset which you, to my mind, have not done anything to solve.
On the contrary, I was there in a panel yesterday, and this is precisely, I mean, this is the conventional wisdom, that the young people do not like to touch the print editions. And I gave the example even yesterday, when we actually thought that by making our young world, the magazine which is meant for the young readers, digital, we will save a lot of cost. We actually lost several thousand copies just because of that, which goes on to show that there are still people...
That's a claim. That's still a claim. You see, the answer to all of these is basically an industry-wide currency.
Research.
That's it.
I'm not denying that. All I'm saying...
Let me just add two things here, Ali. One, the problem is that the media planners find television more sexy than they find print. Okay? So the problem is as much with the media planners as it is with us. So they do not want to look at...
Why don't you make newspapers sexy?
That's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say.
Since we're on the bond topic, why don't you make newspapers sexy?
Yeah. And the other thing is, that's an issue. So we as an industry need to sit down with media agencies and advertising agencies and try to educate the planners. That's something that we have not been able to do, and I think we should do. That's our responsibility as an industry, and we owe it to our own brands, and we owe it to the industry to do that. And I've been talking with, the other thing is that I think we have to get out of this mental scare that we have around us on readership studies. I think we have to move out of that box and move towards doing proper readership studies, which also takes into account what you were saying about television a little while earlier. And I've been working with both Group M as well as with Rehan on that, particularly with Rehan on developing a currency. And hopefully, I think we'd be able to come out with something.
If I could just make one point here. I think whether you look for a new way to measure readership, etc., the thing print needs to single-mindedly focus on is recreating relevance with the consumer.
Yes.
Up to about 5 years ago, the ultimate argument by newspaper sellers was, but you can take your newspaper to the bathroom in the morning. You can't take your computer. And then bloody Steve Jobs came out with an iPad. So, your ultimate argument got lost as well. You're losing relevance on a daily basis.
Sam, let me ask you a question over here. When you say in India, print or newspapers repositioned themselves, they repositioned themselves as individual brands. So, for example, Times of India, the positioning that it carries or it carried in the last decade is quite different to the positioning that it carried for its consumers 30 years ago or 20 years ago. What was that difference?
Sam, after you answer, I'll bring in a couple of Indian. I think Ashish and Mitrajit are there. I'll get their views. But go ahead, Sam.
I think what I would say is newspapers took a conscious view that they are not appealing to the youth and they are not even appealing to the young-minded of the older generation. So because of that, you'd see now the growing newspapers, or 5 years ago they started growing again, they became sexier, they became more colorful, the news articles became shorter, the headlines became more colorful. Physically, there's one newspaper that introduces to color for a headline. Earlier, there was a time that you had to go to the newspaper offices. Today, if you see Madison's reception, it is half full of newspaper people waiting for appointments with media planners. Today, newspapers aggressively advertise on television, on outdoor. Their
In fact, one of the biggest
circulation-
advertising campaigns are run by all newspapers within the media industry.
So, I mean, all this is what I'm calling repositioned
Right.
themselves, and they fought back.
Sam, let me bring in Mitrajit and Ashish for a quick comment on this. I'm sure both of them have seen the similar inflection point back in India.
Yeah, I think I have a completely different take. See, it's our industry, we have to fight and we have to position. We have gone through this phase where we have kept on defending by saying younger planners, they don't understand, TV is sexy. I'll give you some 2-3 examples.
Only two.
The biggest growing newspapers, fastest growing newspapers are in the regional space in India today, like the Dainik Jagrans, the Dainik Bhaskars. And one of the principal reasons for growth has been increase of editions. So like we are talking about fragmentation, new channels coming up, a large part of growth have come from getting newer editions, sexying up the paper, going to younger audience, making it more relevant, be very aggressive with marketing the product, increasing your sales footfall, everything. Second point is collaborate, not only compete. Yes, all of us have to compete with each other, but as an industry body, you have to invest in metrics, you have to go together to the client and sell the cause of print. And we have to do that, no one else.
One quick example from Ashish, if I may bother you, Ashish, for a quick point. Ashish, for those who don't know.
I want to throw another...
Yeah, I'll come to it. Let him make a point. Ashish, go ahead.
It's very clear that if we don't innovate and if we stick to what we were in the past, we're not going to make any headway. We're only going to, lose value, erode brand value. We have to reinvent. Besides, of course, the point that Mitrajit made about newspapers becoming very micro. Every 100 kilometers now you have a new edition, you have a new printing center, and that's how they grew. I'm talking about the Hindi newspapers and the Malayalam newspapers. But let me tell you, for mainstream English press, the way we have invented ourselves, the kind of supplements we bring out, which are all targeted. So the main newspaper, besides, of course, reinventing its format, its layout, its design, its photo to text ratios, headlining, all that, the supplements have become that much more stronger. In fact, if you see, some of our supplements are picked up first before the main issue is picked up, because the supplements are addressed at the youth at home, the housewife, the working woman. All sorts of supplements actually go to augment the newspaper offering. So it's not now only just a newspaper. It is a wholesome daily diet to a household, addressing all segments in that household. And that's how these brands have actually become household brands and continue to grow. On the back of that, very, very aggressive marketing programs and strategies to acquire subscribers. I mean, there's a huge DTC scheme, which is direct to consumer, where we actually go and every day we meet about 500 to 550 households, trying to get them to enroll to our newspaper brands. And these are very aggressive schemes. By doing so, we get two things. We get to know who our consumer is once they subscribe. We get the names, we get the addresses, and then on the back of that, we run various demographic programs to enrich our database. So we know how many people in the household, how many professionals, how many self-employed professionals, and what have you. And then we can cross-sell and upsell various things to them to ensure that our readership continues to grow.
All right, that's a good solution package. We're running out of time. I think Rehan has a point, but I'll take one question from the floor, sir, right in the front row. Mr. Hashmi? One next to you, or sir?
Mr. Arshad Khan.
No, aap le lijie.
I'll just
Go ahead, sir.
I have briefly two comments. One is that the print media, historically has been operating in a monopoly like a government department. I've been associated with the public sector for 11 years. So the mindset of work operating in a monopoly, I think, still continues. I agree with what Mr. Sarma said, that they need to interact more with the advertising agencies, but not to educate them, but probably get educated from them. How changes have happened, what we need to do, or what print media need to do to improve on this. Secondly, sir, I think it is very common phenomena when the changes take place. Look at what happened with PTCL compared to a mobile phone. When the technology changes, when the mobility is added to the fixed line, when the audio and video impact is added to the print media, so it is understood that things will change. It's nothing really unusual. But of course, what we need to think about is how to retain our adequate market share. I think the print media hasn't really moved to innovation because still sitting in that monopoly kind of environment and not made real efforts that were supposed to be done in order to retain their due market share.
Right.
Like I said, the audio-visual impact, you can never be really match the audio-visual impact. When the ad is run in my home, for example, even my 3-year-old grandson, he's repeating the ads all over the place. So that impact will never be able to create it through a print media. Second point, sir, I wanted to just mention, we have been talking about digital since yesterday. In my opinion, digital is no different. It is part of the print media.
Right.
It is just it's just a mode of access that you change from a paper to the print. But what I feel definitely is that this part is not exploited as much as the viewership is.
I got your fair point,
The
sir.
customers do not give due weightage to the social media still,
Right.
and also the advertisers.
Fine, thank you so much. I've already got the signal. Whenever the anchors stand, that's when the thing has to end. So let me kind of wrap it up. And you want a quick comment in?
It's okay.
Hashmi sahab, okay.
I want to make a quick comment that after holding this SAMS, South Asia Media Summit, when you look at APNS, the young leaders like Sarmad and Masood Hamid, I think you must do this thing also, this natural leadership survey. Because we have to have this common currency. If you look at all these innovations, looking at the target market, the reader and everything, but we don't have that. And that is, I think, the primary thing, rather than going into every direction. And I think, Sarmad, you can take up this thing and get it done in your tenure, maybe.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Just a quick wrap up with a one-line answer. Sam, I'll start with you. They say the biggest solution to a problem is the admission of the problem. And I think we are all sitting here because it seems there is an admission. In one line, in how much time do you think this reinvention will happen in Pakistani print media? Mike.
It can happen quite fast. Come to India, 7, 8 of you. We'll mount a full day presentation, courtesy Anurag. We'll host you. We'll tell you all the tricks of the trade and come back and implement it. I think then you're on your way.
Anurag, that's an offshoot satellite summit that you can do. Fuad, how soon? Fuad, how soon do you think this is going to happen here in Pakistan? Or you have written it off, Fuad?
No, I think it's with the two people at the helm of affairs with APNS today. There's a lot of respect and credibility that they hold. So I just feel that it's up to them to push the buck, and it is up to us to give them 150% support to getting this done.
Thank you. That's a very optimistic note. Ali Muslim, sir?
Well, I just think it can be anywhere from 2 years to nothing. It all depends on how quickly print sheds its old mentality.
All right, 2 years is a good enough window. Ran? Closing comments?
Yeah, honestly, I think the first realization that they already have is that they need a matrix on which we can measure them on. The second thing that they need to do is to get branding, to reposition themselves. And while this session at India will help them how to do it, but there needs to be something which comes from within. And I think the advantage of Sarmad and Masood sitting there, who are not owners of any media houses anymore, I think the problem also occurred because in the last 5-6 years, if you look at the large print share organizations, they've all gone into TV. So the owner's focus has also gone to the more sexy medium, which was TV.
So now you have the professionals.
So now they need to come, now that these guys are in, all they need to do is in the next 2 years get it done and over with.
Right. Within 2 years. Sarmad Sahab, last word to you.
I think 2 years is a bit too long. I would say that we should be able to do it within a year, and I would like to commit that we are ready to do it in a year.
All right.
As long as my friends on this side are willing to cooperate with me.
Well, on that very all right, on that optimistic note, thank you so much. Thank you, Sam, Fuad, Ali, and Rehan, and Sarmad Sahab for joining us on an impromptu basis. Thank you so much. I hope you guys all enjoyed the session.
Thank you, all the esteemed panelists. Would request you to stay back. We'd like to acknowledge you. Tawqir.
Yes, we'll begin with Mr. Humayun Tariq. If he can please come up, business report, and present to Sam Balsara. Mr. Ayaz Badshah, publisher, Mashriq Peshawar. If he can come up and present to Fawad Hussain.
All right, we can do with a round of applause, please. Thank you.
May I request Dr. Wakari Yusuf Azimi to please come and present to Ali Mustansir. Ali Mustansir, आपने दिया?
We had a yesteryear film industry personality, Mr. Raza Murad, who had come here, and I'm wondering if he's here in the audience. We'd like him to come up on stage. I guess he isn't. Sorry, beg your pardon? After lunch he'll be coming. Great, thanks.
May I request Mr. Arif Nizami, is he here? Rahmat Ali Razi Saab agar aa jaएं, please. To present to Rehan Merchant, please. Could I ask Mr. Markan Adhikari, Managing Director, SAP Group, to please come and present to the moderator?
Mr. Markan Adhikari from the subgroup I don't see in the audience right now. Probably we'll acknowledge him later in the day.
Jameel Athar Saab, President CPNE, to please come and do the honors. To present to the moderator, Mr. Shivnath Thukral.
Shivnath, you did a very good job. Brilliant panel, interactive. Thank you. Thank you all panelists. We do have a presentation by Mr. Sam Balsara, but I think we'll break for lunch as of now and come back and look at his presentation, which is on the Goa Fest committee. 45 minutes.